Welcome to Cheap Controls. We make videos on things that we struggled with, hoping to help you so you don't. Consider subscribing and hitting that bell.
In this video, I'm going to go over using passwords to access the Nextion display. I'll have an opening screen with a little keypad. It'll be a numeric password, but it'll be stored as text. And in this way, you'll be able to access the pages behind the front page. But as a twist, I'm going to have two separate passwords. One's going to be for an admin user, and one's going to be for a general user. This is the editor version I'm using for this video, version 1.65.1. And I'm going to do this on a 4.3-inch enhanced display. I've added two fonts down here, a smaller one and a slightly larger one. And then I'm going to add 12 text fields for the keypad. I'm going to select all of the fields and I'm going to change the size. So I want them to be square and look like little buttons that you're going to push. And then I'm going to lay them out. Now that I have them in a nice format, I'm going to lock them in place. So this way I can't move them around accidentally. And then just so I can keep the text fields for the keypad separate from any other text fields, sometimes I rename the fields. And since this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that, I'm going to name them. I'm going to put a K in front of them and rename them. And this key down here, I'm going to call it delete. And this one over here, I'm going to be insert. I don't think delete is going to fit in here, and that's why I have that slightly smaller font. Okay, now that that's all set up and looks fairly decent, I'm going to add a text box to display what we press. And we'll want it to start empty. Now, in this case, I'm going to leave it so you can see the text, but if you wanted to, you could go over here and you could change it to a password field, and then it would show up as asterisks instead of the text. Now, when you press one of these buttons, we want it to fill out up here. And if you notice, they're text, they're not number fields. And so what we'll do is we'll take this T0 field and we'll append whatever's in the button that you press. And in this case, we're on K0, so K0.text. And I'm going to repeat this code for all of these buttons. So now if I run this in debug, we'll do a quick test and make sure that I didn't fat finger something. And it looks like everything's good. So now the delete button, we'll use that to remove a character if we mis-enter something. So whenever we press it, we're going to minus equal, and if it's a text and you put a number out here, it'll subtract that number of characters off the end. So if we had 2, it would subtract 2. But in this case, every time you press it, we'll subtract 1 character from whatever's in the T0 field. Now for this insert button, when we hit it, we're going to go to another page. And insert, I don't know, that really doesn't make sense now that I think about it. I think I'm going to change it to enter. So when we press this enter key, it'll take us to 2 more pages. So we're going to have to add a couple pages. I'm going to have 1 page, and we'll call it data. And then the second page, or third page, we'll call it admin. But when we press this enter key, we want to have it take us to the admin page, or to the data page. So let's test it at this point. So I should be able to enter keywords, and I should be able to delete them. And if I hit enter, it should take us to a blank page. And it does. Now on this data page, there would be stuff you'd want to look at. But for this example, all we care about is getting back to the lockout page, or to the keypad page, or going to the admin page. So I'm going to add 2 buttons. And we'll call this one exit. And we'll have it take us to the keypad page, or page 0. And we'll have this one that will be called admin. And we're going to have it take us to the admin page. And then on the admin page, we're going to add 2 buttons. And we'll have this one say exit also. We'll have it take us back to the keypad page. And this one will say back. And it'll take us to the data page. So now at this point we should be able to go to enter. Oh, it didn't stick. Sometimes I'll hit that and it won't stick, so I'll go back and change that. But this will take us to the admin page. This will take us back to this page. This would exit, or admin and exit. So it's fully functional, other than we got to change that one label. So now that we're to this point, we want to limit access somehow. So in this program.s tab, you can add variables. But they need to be at the top, and they can only be integers. You couldn't put a string in here. And in this case, we're going to have a variable called admin pass, and we're going to initially set it equal to 0. And now we're going to go to this data page. And on the post initialize, so when you first start up the page, we're going to add a little bit of code. And what it's going to say is this is B0. So we're going to make it visible. And this says whether we're going to show it or not show it. And we're going to identify it. And then we're going to use this variable. So if it's a 0, it won't be visible. And if it's a 1, it will be visible. And right now in our program S, because this program S follows, it's a global variable, so it'll be on every page. When we initially started, it's going to be equal to 0. So now when I go to debug, and I hit enter, it's not there. And you can't click on it or anything. So now what we need to do is we need to be able to change that program S admin pass to a 1. So we'll be entering passwords at this point. And so we'll need to create the passwords. We'll do that on the admin page. I've added 4 text fields and a save button. And these text fields 0 and 1 are just labels. So we'll have a user password will be in this T2, and then the admin password will be in T3. So in order to enter a password, we're going to set these up to have a keypad. So I'm going to select both of them. And they both have to be set to a global scope. And then we're going to set this numeric keypad. And it's going to add a couple things when we do that. Now when we click on these, a keypad will open up and we'll be able to put text in there. When we hit this save button, we want to take the data that's in here and we're going to write it to eeprom. So we're going to add on on release, we're going to run these two commands, wepo t2.text, and we're going to store it because wepo is write to eeprom and repo is read from eeprom. So we're going to write whatever's in t2.text to location 10. And each location is a character. So if you can store 5 or 6 characters, it would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, or however many characters you're wanting to store. So you have to be a little bit careful. Because if I made this second one for T3, which is the admin, and set that at 11, it would overwrite. So in this case, I'm reserving 10 characters or 10 spaces for the user password and a lot of spaces for the admin. But if I had another one, I would put it at 30. I'm going to keep the passwords to 5 characters for this example. We also want to populate these fields when we open the page. So we'll go to the page initialize. Every time we open this page, we're going to populate these 2 fields from memory. Now we haven't put anything in there, so it'll be interesting to see what pops up the first time we run it. So we also on post initialize want to be able to stop access to the page. So if that admin pass, which is in that program S, is equal to 0, then we're going to make it go to page 0. So in other words, if you try to access this page and that admin password isn't set to 1, not the password itself, but the variable admin pass. If it's not set to 1, it's going to kick you back to page 0. So we're testing it in 2 ways. We're blocking the admin button from appearing on this page, but we're also having a post initialize function that when we go to this page, it will send us back to page 0 if it's not set. We do have a problem. We can't get to the page to set the passwords until we have the passwords. So in this program.s, I'm going to change this to 1. So that means that button will appear and we'll have access to the page. So this takes us to the next page. It doesn't matter whether we have a password or not. So now you can see that there's just random data in here. So now we'll try and change it. We'll delete that that's in there, and we'll add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you can see that it didn't change. And that's because when we open this keypad and we make an adjustment to it and we hit OK, it refreshes this page. Well, we have it set so that every time we open this page, it pulls the data from whatever it's stored at, this time, this data, and it reloads it. So when we click on this, we make the change to 4444, okay? And so when we hit OK, it writes it to there for a second, but then it overwrites it because we have the code set to overwrite it. So we need to make a change for that. We're going to create a second variable in this program.s. We're going to call it current page equal to 0. And this variable is going to keep track of the page that we're on. So when we're on page 0 on the post initialize, we're going to set the current page. And I have it initially set to 0. But this way, every time we come back to this page, it will adjust it to be 0. When I go to my data page, you want to have it at the end of all of your code. So in this case, it'll be current page equal to 1. But we don't want to change it until we've gone through the page once. And I'll explain that on the admin page. So this way, the first time we go through this page, current page will be set to 1 because we'll be coming from page 1. I don't have any buttons on page 0 that would direct us here. But then after we change it, the second, third, fourth, however many more times we refresh this page, it will say current page equal to 2. So if I make this change right here, if current page not equal to 2, then we read the information out of the EEPROM. So this way, when we run the keypad, we're not going to change the page. So this won't run except for the very first time we run through this particular code. We'll run it in debug and I'll show you. I forgot to that. When you do the curly brackets, they have to be on their own line. So now when I hit enter, I go to here, I go to admin. I still have the same data, but now it should hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And now I'm going to save this, and it should write it. Actually, let's exit. We see that it saved it here. If I go back, and I hit admin again, it still has that data. So it read it out of memory. Now this time we'll save it. And now we'll go back. We'll go to admin, and now it's there. And for the admin password, we'll make it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 2 different passwords, and they're stored. So now we can go back and set that program S and do add some other functionality. Because we want to get to the point where even if you hit enter, nothing happens unless you have the proper password. So the first thing we do is we're going to set this back to 0. So our admin password will initially be to 0 and won't allow us access to the admin page. In order to do a comparison, we're going to have to read in the string and compare it. So I'm going to add a variable. And we're going to make this variable a string. We're going to delete the value in it. And now our enter event used to say, or does say, page data, which takes us directly to data. We're going to alter that. So we're going to repo or read the user password. And we're going to store it in VA0. And if they match, if T0 matches what we have in there, will take us to page data. We're not going to adjust that program.s admin pass variable in this case because we don't want that to appear. All we want to do is give them access to the data page. But then we're also going to add another one where we're going to repo in what's in 20, which is the admin password. And if t0.tx equals that password, or if va0, the one we brought in, equals t0.text, then we're going to set that admin pass equal to 1. So we'll change that. And then we're going to go to the page data. We're still going to go to the data page either way, but that button will appear. So now if I enter 1, 2, 5 and hit enter, nothing happens. But if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and hit enter, we go to this page and we can see what's ever on this page, but we don't have access to the admin page. But if I go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and hit enter, then I have access to this admin page. So it works pretty well, but now I'm going to exit. And if I hit enter, it doesn't match, but now watch if I enter the user password. So this is the user. We shouldn't have access to the admin page, but we do. And that's because the first time we entered admin, we set that admin pass variable to 1. We never reset it. So when I initialize this first page here, not only am I going to set the current page equal to 0, I'm going to set that admin password equal to 0. So every time we enter this page, in order to get the admin again, we'll have to enter the admin password. So now if I enter the admin password, I see this page. I can go to it. Now if I exit and hit the user password, I don't have access to it. So when you're trying to add security, I guess it's important to make sure you check every type of entering that area. In this video, I showed you how to access the eeprom using repo and wepo, and you're able to store 2 different passwords in it, and then based upon comparison between these 2 fields and setting a bit, you can have access to different pages, and then you can even show different buttons based upon that variable.
Well, that's about it for this video. If you like what you saw, consider giving me a thumbs up, and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.